I would like to welcome you all in this scientific session. Firstly, I would like to request Dr. A.K. Agrawal as a program director to take his seat, sir. Doctor, he will be the chairperson of this scientific session. The speaker of this session, the learned speaker, Dr. V.P. Gupta sir, will take the first session. Now I would like to request Dr. A.K. Agrawal to share something about Dr. V.P. Gupta sir.
A.K. Agrawal, orthopedic surgeon and sports injury specialist. Welcome to this wellness conference. I suppose you are all the student of this physiotherapy college. तो मैं ये कहना चाहूँगा आप सभी से that since I do a lot of sports injury treatment, so I can tell you that how important is the physiotherapy after the sports injury treatment. और इसलिए ये सेशन भी बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण है. इस सेशन को शुरू करने के लिए जो सबसे उपयुक्त कविता मुझे याद आती है, क्योंकि फिजियोथेरेपी एक कैरियर की तरह से लेना कोई छोटा मोटा चैलेंज नहीं है. इट इज ए टफ चैलेंज. तो हरविंद राय बच्चन ने वैसे तो एक कविताएं लिखी थी, ये बहुत ही अच्छी, जो मुझे अच्छी लगती है, मैं आपसे शेयर करूंगा कि फिजियोथेरेपी उसमें से एक ही वर्ड बदल रहा हूँ. उन्होंने कहा था सफलता एक चुनौती है, इसे स्वीकार करो. मैं कहता हूँ फिजियोथेरेपी आज की डेट में एक चुनौती है, इसे स्वीकार करो. क्या कमी रह गई है देखो और सुधार करो. कुछ किए बिना ही जय जयकार नहीं होती, कोशिश करने वालों की कभी हार नहीं होती. इतने सारे फिजियोथेरेपी की अपरूट्स आ गई है. बेसिक फिजियोथेरेपी का कोर्स, उसके बाद स्पेशलाइज्ड फिजियोथेरेपी, न्यूरो फिजियोथेरेपी, कार्डियोवैस्कुलर फिजियोथेरेपी, रोबोटिक फिजियोथेरेपी. एक एक ब्रांच, आप किसी भी एक ब्रांच पे अपने को स्पेशलाइज कर सकते हैं. और यू शुड बी प्राउड दैट यू आर इन कानपुर यूनिवर्सिटी कॉलेज ऑफ फिजियोथेरेपी, विच इज द टॉप कॉलेज ऑफ द कंट्री. हमारे जो नेक्स्ट स्पीकर हैं, जो कि बहुत ही लर्निड एम्स से आए हैं, डॉक्टर, I would request Dr. Sanjay Kumar, who is the head of the department, Medical College Kanpur, as chairperson with me, Dr. Sanjay. Dr. V.P. Gupta, who is the chief physiotherapist, head of the department physiotherapy unit, cardiothoracic vascular department. Vascular Department, All India Institute Medical Sciences, New Delhi, which is, we know, is the top health institute of the country. Rather, I would say of half of the world, AIIMS is not only top institute of our country, India, but it is probably leading maybe more than half the country of the world. So he is such a acclaimed, recognized physiotherapist from such an institute which speaks in itself. And he has specialized himself into the cardiothoracic vascular surgery physiotherapies. इन्होंने, इनका मोटिव लाइफ का रहा है डिफिकल्ट है। कार्डियोथोरेसिक वेस्कुलर सर्जरी की फिजियोथेरेपी का अभी शायद हम लोगों को कोई आइडिया ही नहीं होगा। कितने लोगों को आइडिया है? प्लीज हाथ उठाएंगे कि CTVS में क्या स्पेशल करेंगे हम लोग? हार्ट तो चल रहा है अपने आप, वेस्कुलर सर्जरी अपने आप हो रही है, मुझे क्या करना है? कोई थॉट ही नहीं आता है। तो ऐसी बड़ी रेयर सी ब्रांच में इन्होंने अपने को स्पेशलाइज किया है। इनके बारे में 2 लाइन कहूंगा बिफोर डॉक्टर VP गुप्ता टेक्स द माइक। कह दो मुश्किलों से थोड़ा और कठिन हो जाएं, कह दो मुश्किलों से थोड़ा और कठिन हो जाएं, कह दो चुनौतियों से थोड़ा और कठिन हो जाएं। अगर नापना चाहते हो हमारी हिम्मत को तो कह दो आसमान से कि थोड़ा और ऊपर हो जाए। वेलकम डॉक्टर VP गुप्ता।
Good morning, everybody. I think it's good afternoon by now. So, I'm really privileged and honored to be here amongst you all, the dignitaries of the dais, dear students and faculty of this esteemed university. I got the invitation quite long back. It was around month of April, I think, when Dr. Katyar called me up and asked for this. We were in a conversation regarding something else. So he said that we are organizing a conference on wellness, and a subject like physiotherapy will be quite challenging for this conference, and he invited me there. So I was little hesitated about participating in this kind of conference because wellness is not a very small subject. It has a very widening horizon. And physiotherapy as such takes a lot of components from each part of the wellness. And wellness is not confined to any branch of medical science. The wellness is a very composite factor, you can say composite system of healthcare, which is very relevant in this kind of lifestyle which we have adopted right now in the advent of the technology and advancement of our technology system and our professional growth. So in this view, it was very challenging. But still, since I come from a branch from where itself patients are itself a challenge, but in cardiac surgery, the patients are of different kind. They are comorbidities. They are already in the failures. They are already depressed patients. And for such patients, a teamwork which has been doing, a team which is engaged in keeping those patients live and making them vital for the future life, it becomes very important and very challenging. So he said that why not we exchange our experiences. So though this university is not new for me, but the conference is, I'm attending in this university for the first time. I had been to this university from around 4 years. I had been coming from the start of the physiotherapy course. And in Board of Academics, initially Board of Academics, we had formulated and drafted the guidelines for the academic part. But it is good to revisit the university and to be amongst all of you. So I had prepared my talk around the wellness. It was not per se around cardiopulmonary physiotherapy, because cardiopulmonary physiotherapy is one component of basic physical therapy, and the basic physiotherapy itself is a component of wellness. So what wellness is? The wellness is not confined to one system. It is not only physical wellness. The wellness which you see right now, if you are healthy, it doesn't mean you are completely well. It comprises of social, emotional, spiritual, academic, environmental, your intellectual, and with your physical wellness. So wellness has been defined by various institutions, and so is cardiac rehabilitation, because wellness and rehabilitation are very associated with each other. The rehabilitation part, when you rehabilitate a person, habilitation and rehabilitation, there are two terminologies which are very connected to each other. And rehabilitation, to rehabilitate a person into its own original life before the disease itself, it is a work of all the health professionals. It cannot be confined to any particular healthcare system. So the cardiac rehabilitation is also a teamwork. It involves starting from the surgeon, from the physician to the cardiologist, to the cardiac surgeon, to the physiotherapist, nurses, dietitian, speech, and social worker, and to even our sanitation workers, who are important in keeping the sanitation apt to prevent the infection and to maintain the hygiene. So the rehabilitation and wellness, they are the synonyms of each other, because they take every part from the sphere of the life, which is important for a person to be active in its environment, in its working, in its day-to-day functioning. So wellness, as you see, is defined in such a manner. And why wellness matters, as I said, if you have to work aptly and optimally in your daily life, you have to maintain a certain amount of fitness, not only physical fitness, but you have to be strong enough in your spiritual field, in your emotional field, in your behavioral aspect, in your other intellectual part. So all these spheres are very important in pertaining to the wellness. And being a patient, all the spheres of the wellness, all the components are affected. Not only the physical, the patients are depressed, emotionally depressed, spiritually they are down, intellectually their intellect is also affected. Their working environment is affected. They cannot be optimally working in their working environment. So all these things matter, and that's how the wellness matters in a day-to-day life. Not only for the old age citizens, but also from pediatric, from neonates to the old age geriatric population. For everyone, the wellness is a very important factor. So what are the dimensions? As I said, the social wellness, spiritual wellness, physical wellness, emotional, occupational, financial, spiritual, environmental, and intellectual wellness. All these are the components which we will take, like there is no introduction about them. And these things are very behavioral aspect, very practically maintainable, and everyone can understand from the word which it defines to. This is a study for complementary and alternate medicine. It is not only the healthcare system, the complete healthcare system is responsible for the wellness of a person. So all the systems of medicine, complementary, alternative, supplementary, the basic medical system, everyone is responsible for the wellness. And there was a study by the Matthews J. Robilo, which was published, and the National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine, that defines complementary and alternative medicine, which is being involved in the wellness, taking care of the wellness of the person, which involves the 5 therapeutic systems as such per se, which has been observed, which has been evidenced in the studies. They take as the biomedical therapies, the biological based therapies, then mind-body therapies, the energy medicine, the manipulative therapy, and the whole medical system as such. So these 5 components, they have studies and they have found the evidence about it. There are a lot more things which have not been studied as yet. Because our practical behavioral part in each individual, how to tackle a disease or a pathology or a disease system or an environment is totally different. And each and everything has not been told to the physician by the patients as such when they visit for their health care problems. So all these things, what are being evidenced, these are the 5 basic systems which cover the part, the therapeutic part which the people are engaged in or which they take on their own. So the biological based therapies, that includes the aromatherapy, chelation therapy, diet based therapies, folk medicine, iridology, mecavitamin therapy, natural therapy or naturotherapy, phytotherapy or herbal medicines. And similarly, the mind-body therapies, there are a lot of spiritual part involved in it. So that is anthroposophical medicines, autogenic trainings, biofeedbacks, biosciences, cognitive or behavioral therapies, deep breathing exercises as such. There are a lot of emphasis on this right now. Group supports, group discussions, and spiritual medicine-based therapies, imagery, meditation, prayer, relaxations, and all other yoga, including yoga and all other Chinese and Tibetan systems. So the prevalence, it has been found from in different population, the prevalence of these therapeutic interventions or the people who are using these therapies, it is from starting from in different population, it is from 2% to 57%. And at the most included therapies are the relaxation therapies and the physical measures. The manipulative therapy is being used around 67% of this part is being used as a manipulative therapy. In cardiac patients, usually MBTs, the mind-body therapies are being used because there are dysfunctions related to the cardiorespiratory systems, which in turn affect the mind-body system, the physical system, all other comorbidities are present in those kind of patients. So this involves mostly the physical system as well as the spiritual and education part for the patients. The relaxation techniques that include practices as progressive relaxations. There are various schools of relaxation therapies which practice relaxation in their different forms, and there are different regimes and protocols for these relaxation therapies. Then meditation also, there are different Raj Yoga, Hatha Dharma, and all those meditation schools are there, and they also practice a lot of things to give a spiritual healing to the patients. Yoga, which has been a very effective tool in present healthcare system as a prevention and therapeutic part in all kind of patients. In lifestyle and non-communicative diseases, yoga has been proving quite a boon for the preventive healthcare. But yoga and exercises, it has been found and it has been evidenced that they are not the same things. Yoga is an anaerobic part which includes the postures and asanas, and that improves the flexibility of the person. While exercises is a physiological and metabolically affecting part, which improves the strength as well as the physiological systems and removes all other metabolic process, improves all other metabolic processes also. They are different and complementary and supplementary to each other, but each part is important in particular phase of the disease or pathology or even in the healthy life. In 2008, there was a study, there was an RCT that comprising relaxation versus lifestyle modification, which has found both the systems like lifestyle modifications or the yoga. If you take yoga into the practice, both are compared. It was found that both are effective in improving the metabolically or physical portions of the healthcare. They were effectively tackling the hypertension and blood pressure related issues, and lifestyle diseases and non-communicable diseases were being prevented and being treated also to some extent by both the things. And comparatively, yoga was found to be more effective in those studies. But the studies in this portion of healthcare are very less, and they still require quite a lot of researches, which we have. In AIMS, we have our system for these complementary medicines, and we have opened a center for integrative medicine and research. And where we are taking out researches and we are integrating the different systems of Indian system of medicine, complementary system of medicines, and the modern system of medicines. And we are taking out, calling for the research projects, and we are right now handling around 32 projects in that, depending upon the neurological disorders, the gastric disorders, diabetic disorders, and cardiovascular disorders. and psychiatry also. There were two projects in psychiatry also. So with the help of yoga, like it is being inculcated now into the daily practice, and there is a lot of dearth of research in yoga because yoga was in India. Yoga was the way of life basically, and no one felt the need for any research further because it was just a daily behavior in the day-to-day life. So now, since the evidence-based medicine is started now, so it is required to have research now and to produce the documentations and the results. So that's why the researches and documentations have started now, and still a lot of research is needed. And similarly is regarding the physiotherapy, because physiotherapy is the very youngest system of healthcare. We originated in 1942 and were developed in 1960s. So around 4-5 decades, we have reached to this type that from the basic certificate course, we have reached to the postdoctoral studies, and a lot of researches are coming out. Around 20-25,000 people are doing research all over the globe in 1 year. So now the fund of knowledge is coming out, and definitely we will be serving the society with that. Next is the manipulative and body-based therapies, and they include the acupressure, acupuncture, Alexander techniques, bone techniques, chiropractic. All these osteopathic manipulations, all these things are the part of complementary medicine, which are being used in abundance right now. Then massage therapy, there's different techniques of deep body massage, superficial massage, deep friction massage, and sports, especially Dr. is from the sports medicine, and he would understand the importance of the massage in the day-to-day practice for the infield and outfield, and different techniques of these massage. Though general massage and the therapeutic massage are different. So these massages for the therapeutic purposes are being utilized as a therapeutic part in day-to-day practice for the patients as well. Then manipulations, spinal manipulations, osteopathic manipulations, cervical, spine, or the joint manipulations, all these manipulations which in physiotherapy, which is coming up as a boon, all the physiotherapists, they are interested in manipulating the patient because it gives the instant result, but it is a challenge also because manipulation, learning the manipulation and practicing the manipulation is not an easy job, and they require a lot of practice, a lot of skills along with their scientific knowledge to practice it. And then the whole medical system, the Indian system of medicine, the modern scientific system of medicine, and all other Chinese and Tibetan systems of medicines. Then the new thing is the energy medicine. The concept has been there, but the energy medicine is in practice now for around 20 years. I remember there was a lecture in INMAS for the energy medicine. For the first time, the people over there also, there were a lot of scientific research persons from ICMR, DST and all. But energy medicine inculcated, like because we are all part of energy, whatever we do, whatever we are composed of, that is also a part of energy. So the therapeutic use of this scientific thought or this hypothesis is very important in upcoming healthcare systems. We also conducted, like in our department, there were two researches which were conducted and which proven there was significant improvement in the persons. One was conducted in the dialytic patients, the patients who are on dialysis, and the exercises during the dialysis period, that clearance of the serum creatinine was much more effective than the simple dialysis. And that has become a practice. It has been inculcated into its therapeutic protocol in the AIMS also. Then there was another study to evaluate the effect of low intensity indigenous exercise protocol patients with the heart failure patients. And we conducted this research in heart failure patients which have a severe LV dysfunction from 25% to 30%. And those patients were, their quality of life and their day-to-day activities were much better, though revascularization was not, could not be studied as such because this study was conducted in 2012 and we are still on with this study and we are finding a lot of patients with a heart failure who are getting benefited with simple supervised and home-based exercises programs. And there is an important improvement, significant improvement in their day-to-day quality of life, as well as rehospitalization and their comorbidities are significantly reduced. So this study was from the cardiac rehabilitation from theory to practice. This was a paper published in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology. The abstract of this describes the link between the psychological stress and cardiovascular disease, because psychological factors are important factors in producing or in generating the cardiovascular stress, which inculcates into the cardiac diseases, atherosclerosis or heart failure or valvular diseases, which stress is a very major component in this. And psychological stress, emotional stress, environmental and workplace stresses, they are very common right now. So to understand this pathophysiology is very important, and this was found that the psychological stress has a link as a factor for producing the cardiovascular diseases. And here, that contribute to the poorer health-related quality of life and prognosis in the patient with established cardiac diseases. Similarly, psychotherapy and medication can be considered to alleviate any PSRF related symptoms and to enhance the heart rate quality of life. But the evidence for a definite beneficial effect of cardiac endpoints are inconclusive still. As I said, the researches in these fields are still going on, and it is very important to conduct all these researches, document our assessments and researches and our protocols, so that we can prove that we can have the evidence, and that evidence can be inculcated into our therapeutic practice also. So now I come to per se the cardiac rehabilitation, the AHA guidelines for the cardiac rehabilitation, the referrals. The kind of patients which are referred for cardiopulmonary physiotherapy, they are the myocardial infarction patients, PCI patients who have been revascularized pre and post revascularizations, then coronary bypass surgeries, mitral valve surgeries, congenital heart surgeries, heart failure patients, peripheral vascular diseases. All these patients are being referred pre-operatively and post-operatively, and there is an important role of physiotherapy, cardiopulmonary physiotherapy per se, for treating these patients and improving their quality of life. In Indian context, what is the relation of Indian population and cardiovascular diseases? Because we are increasing in population very rapidly, and as per population, like proportionate of urban inhabitants and urban rate of increase in disease progress, it is much more than the rural rate, because there is a migration from rural area to the urban area, and the urban density of population is increasing, and the disease proclamation is also increasing in the urban areas. And this current projection suggests that by 2020, India will have the largest CVD burden in the world. India is becoming capital of cardiovascular diseases, of diabetic diseases, lifestyle and non-communicable diseases. And this has led to a trend towards decreasing physical activity because of our technological life, our mechanized lifestyle. The decrease in the day-to-day activities, which we were doing a lot of walking, a lot of physical activities previously, but right now everything has been mechanized, and all these activities, our activities are reduced now. So the physical activities are, reduction in physical activities are inculcating into the pathomechanics of cardiovascular and lifestyle diseases. But we have to understand what is the major contraindications to our exercises. The exercises are not prescribed in such a manner that every patient is being benefited with the exercises. And all these things we have to, the don'ts we have to keep in mind, so that if we are not able to produce any benefit for the patients, we should not harm the patient. And all these absolute contraindications, like acute myocardial infarctions within further 2 days till the medication is effective, and the patient is able to, the ST changes and the ECG changes are established. Those kind of now it is being prescribed by in HA guidelines or ACSM guidelines for 2 days. Initially it used to be 2 months. The patient was confined to bed for 2 months. In 60s itself, I remember I was going through the literature. There was only in 62 when this concept was changed and the patient was allowed to do activities after the 7 days of myocardial infarction, acute myocardial infarction. But nowadays, for first day the patient is confined to the bed after recognition, and after PCI, very next day the patient is mobilized. So all these changes and advances are coming after the fund of knowledge which we are creating and which we are documenting. Then unstable angina, the patient is getting angina in day-to-day activities or even at the rest. Uncontrolled cardiac arrhythmias causing symptoms of the hemodynamic compromise, the flutters and arrhythmias, all sort of ventricular and atrial arrhythmias. Symptomatic severe aortic stenosis, then uncontrolled symptomatic heart failure, acute pulmonary embolization, pulmonary infarction, myocarditis or pericarditis, active endocarditis. Then aortic dissections, they are very important disease. The aortic dissections are coming up late in, I think, in the last 10 years. They have come up like anything. They are becoming a part of major peripheral vascular or the central vascular diseases. And we have started our aortic clinic, special aorta clinics have been started, and 2 operating theatres are always busy in doing aortic surgeries. Then acute non-cardiac disorders that might affect exercise performance or be aggravated by the exercises, or if the patient is not willing to do exercises, which is very important ethically. So these things we have to really understand when to prescribe exercises and when to prescribe what intensity of exercises. Then related contraindications, left vein coronary artery stenosis. The patient can perform some sort of assisted exercises, but not more than 6 mat exercises we can prescribe to the patients in such cases. And in case the patient develops angina even after a simple exercise, that proves to be a contraindication for the patient. The moderate stenotic valvular heart diseases, the calcific stenosis, as well as the mitral collapse stenosis because of the leaflet collapse, and the vegetations, or electrolyte abnormalities, severe hypertension, systolic hypertension, or diastolic pressure if it is more than 110 millimeters of mercury, or systolic 200 millimeters of mercury. Then arrhythmias, tachyarrhythmias or bradyarrhythmias, including atrial fibrillations and uncontrolled ventricular rates. Then hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and other form of outflow tract infection, outflow tract obstructions. Then mental or physical impairments leading to inability to cooperate. The patient is not very cooperative. You cannot give the exercise prescription to the patient, because first of all, the patient will not be able to follow it, and then there will not be a regular supervised or unsupervised home program which the patient can follow. Then high degree of AV blocks. In those patients, you can have a cardiac event at any point of exercise. The patient can do heavy exercises, as well as the patient can have any event and very light exercise also. But exercise-based cardiac rehab certainly is proven to be beneficial in these patients, because there is a decrease in non-fatal MI patients. There is a decrease of morbidity of 4% if we have given only exercise-based programs, and if we give a comprehensive program including education, counseling, supervised and unsupervised exercise program, and emotional therapy, then there is a decrease in mortality and rehospitalization by 12%. And for cardiac mortality, it is much more. And if we give exercises only, exercise-based programs, then cardiac mortality is much more reduced, and it is by 31%. And in comprehensive program, it is 26%. But the researches for comprehensive programs are very less, because the compliance in cardiac patients is very poor. the patients after the cardiac surgery and after the post-operative cardiac protocols, they leave for different places, and in our country, the facilities for their supervised programs and cardiac rehabilitations are very little and very scarce. This scarcity has proven to deviate the patients from following the exercise prescriptions. Then what is the role of physiotherapy professionals? Though this all itself, whatever has been I have presented with you, it has already proven that physiotherapy has a definite role in such kind of patients and in management of surgical patients who undergo significant changes, because surgery is not very imminent decision which is taken by the physicians or the surgeons at any point of the time. It involves a lot of comorbidities also. As I said, the emotional, spiritual, physical, intellectual, all these components are involved in these patients. And to improve these patients only by surgery, it is very difficult because surgery has its own implications. First of all, the pain, exercise tolerance, and pain threshold, they are very important factors in these kind of patients. So the recognition by physiotherapy professionals that a restrictive ventilatory defect in the patients when we do the surgical procedures on lung, in lung reduction surgeries in emphysematous patients or restrictive disorders, when the functional capacity and other pulmonary capacities of the patient is very limited. In those patients, if pre-operatively the patient has been given a breathing exercise, a breathing training, a proper apt breathing training, depending upon the restrictive ability and the obstructive part in the pulmonary function test, the patients improve very much. Post-operatively, they cooperate with you, and the pain also, it has been found the pain threshold also goes down. If threshold goes up, the pain sensitivity goes down when the patient has been prehabilitated. I will cover the prehabilitation also. So the pulmonary rehabilitation and cardiac rehabilitation. Cardiopulmonary, in our country, the cardiac and pulmonary specialties are together both, because cardiac and pulmonary both are interdependent. They are two systems which are very closely interdependent with each other, and separating them will be sort of injustice in any professional system. Though surgically, because surgical also, thoracic surgeons also do cardiac surgery, the cardiac surgeons also do thoracic surgeries, and similarly the lung surgeries are taken up by thoracic surgeons as well as cardiac surgeons. It depends upon which part is to be taken by. If the vascular part is involved, if the pulmonary arteries or vasculature is involved, then these cardiac surgeons are also involved with the pulmonary surgeons. So it is very complex field, and cardiopulmonary rehabilitation is a very important factor in such kind of patients, because we have found, we have maintained certain patients which are in our department itself, they were in our staff itself, there were 2 or 3 cervical rib patients which we have prevented from surgery, cervical rib excision surgery for last 13-14 years. Only with the exercises, thoracic outlet syndrome was minimized, and their vascular effects were minimized, and they're symptomatically they're much better, they're able to avoid the surgery till date. So if you prescribe the apt exercises, proper exercises, along with the education and supervised guidance, the patient will be much better. In the area of cardiac rehabilitation, there is increasing evidence that exercise training for the patients with compensated chronic heart failure produces significant improvement in exercise tolerance and quality of life. Because wellness is a part of life, which is going to improve the quality of life of the patient. It is not only the physical fitness, but the whole quality of life of the patient, which has been proven to be significantly improved in cardiac patients after cardiac rehabilitation. And the method of treating impaired airway clearance in spontaneous breathing patients have moved away from the routine lip and pursed lip breathing, which used to be very prominent in such kind of patients in all obstructive and restrictive disorders. We were prescribing only the pursed lip breathing with quote unquote foot lagao, just for the positive pressure effects. But now it has been found that this is not enough, because in all patients the pursed lip breathing is not a solution. Mobilization, postural drainage, exercise training, intercostal muscle training, proprioceptive PNF of the respiratory system, they all are important part in such kind of patients. Techniques of postural drainage, which used to be just gravity assisted position, but now it has been found after the studies and a lot of genetic mutations are occurring where anatomy is changing now. So on those basis, the pulmonary anatomies and the vascular anatomies, we have to modify our postural drainage position also. So for that we have to understand the investigative part and the diagnostic part as well. However, many patients who regularly produce secretions have changed to their bronchial anatomy. As I said, the anatomy part has to be taken well by us to understand the pathomechanics of the disease and to have a quality treatment for those kind of patients. So the aims, the basic aims regarding wellness for the cardiac patients to prevent adequate ventilation and their functional capacities, to assist the removal of excessive secretions and maintain airway clearance, to assist the circulation in the peripheral part of the system, because the patients become sedentary for at least 24 to 40 hours, 48 hours, and in some kind of surgeries the patient has been mobilized even after 4 to 6 hours after surgery. But in most of the cases in complex surgeries, in cardiac surgery, the patients are there in the bed, and God forbid if the patient develops any complication, they are in the bed, they may be in the bed for longer hours, and it has been proven that if you are in the bed for more than 48 hours, your plasma volume starts decreasing by 10% in every 24 hours. So your hematocrits, your hemodynamic responses, everyone starts changing. So the sedentary lifestyle and the sedentary habit which has been forced on these kind of patients becomes sometimes comorbid and sometimes it becomes fatal also. So to assist the peripheral circulation, it is very important. Maintaining the physiological property of the muscles of the shoulder, girdle and spine, because they will be involved in mobilization, and early mobilization is our objective, to make the patient on their feet as early as possible after the surgical period is over. And pain, depending upon the pain threshold, the patient has been mobilized as early as possible, and this decreases the pain also, as well as mobilizes a lot of other organic systems, the body physiological systems, which are there metabolically inactive or metabolically affected during the surgical period. To prevent the postural defects, you have lots of patients have their surgical incisional postural defects, as well as the sedentary postural defects, because the patients are already in comorbid position preoperatively and they develop a certain kind of forward drooping posture. Patients are depressed also. In depressed patients also you must have found the patients are in drooping posture, and their respiratory compliance and their exercise tolerance capacity is also low. So these kind of patients have to be mobilized as early as possible out of bed, and to restore the functional capacity and exercise tolerance and to improve it. So they are the very basic aims, but in all the patients, all the aims are not uniform. We have to focus on certain guidelines, certain aims, and depending upon the patient's inability and patient's surgical outcome. Rehabilitation, as I was saying, we have to train the patients preoperatively so that the surgical outcomes can be better. And in those cases, we have found, we are still in that study, it has been 3 years now, that those patients who have been rehabilitated or the exercise training has already been given to those patients to improve their functional capacity and to reduce the incidence of comorbidities, those patients have come out of the ventilator much earlier than the patients who have not been rehabilitated. And in our, especially in aortic dissection cases, there is a protocol that unless the patient is having FEV1 of more than 80%, the patient will not be operated. That has been a protocol at AIIMS, and only after the training, if the patients come in failure, patients come in comorbid state, where the pulmonary functions are very much compliant and very much compromised, we treat the patient, we educate the patient, train the patient, and with certain maneuvers, physiotherapy maneuvers, the exercise part of the exercise tolerance and functional capacity, that improves quite a bit, and we have improved the functional capacity from 52% to 82%. all these patients can, of course it takes time. And surgical outcomes, if you want to have better surgical outcomes, you have to rehabilitate the patient, prepare the patient for the surgery, and then go for the surgery. The patient's outcome will be much, much better. So as I said, that rehabilitation includes the education, patient supervision, their caretakers' involvement in that part, and patient's hygiene. These 4 or 5 components are very important in rehabilitations. The patients are acclimatized with various breathing exercises such as diaphragmatic breathing, costal breathing, intercostal breathing, ENF techniques, and cuffing techniques. Effectively, patient has to cuff, otherwise the patients get fatigued and they get depressed if they are being directed repeatedly to cough out and they are not being able to produce the effective cough. If the copious secretions are there and you auscultate the patient and find that there is a definite reduction in compliance and there is a compromise, there are repetitions. So in these kind of patients, if effective cough, you teach the patient, and pre-operatively if the patients learn how to cough post-operatively, how to suppress the pain and how to stabilize themselves, the cough becomes much more effective and pain-free. For treated nerves, in order to assist circulation and help prevent post-operative complications like DVT and thrombosis, and shoulder shrugging and shoulder circling as usual exercises for maintenance of physiological properties of spinal and shoulder muscles. You must have read in all these, in both the cardiac phase, all these phases of cardiac rehabilitation, phase 1 in intensive care, phase 2 during the wards, and phase 3 as a follow-up maintenance program. And phase 4 is the long maintenance program where the patient comes with orthopedic problems or with certain lung issues or the comorbid issues like seasonal infections or some injury-based or trauma-based issues. So these kind of maintenance, because these patients are on various kind of drugs which are effectively altering the vascular metabolism. And these patients, if they get infection very soon, recurrently they are having lower respiratory tract infection, or even if they are they receive any traumatic injury, they have to report to the hospital immediately. So that becomes a long part, the phase 4 of the ventilation, phase 4 of the cardiac rehabilitation. So the inpatient programs, as I said, in phase 1, the acute phase in intensive care, immediately after we receive the patient in intensive care. So the activity of low intensities, the patient is, even on the ventilator, the patient is on supportive ventilator. The patient is encouraged to do activities for the limbs, as well as patient is being made to sit in the chair out of bed, and if the ventilator is not being up even for a long period of time. Then passive exercises, upper and lower extremity exercises, breathing exercises, and in tracheostomy patients, especially when there is a challenge to wean off the tracheostomy patient, and we have a special protocol for that. And subacute period, all these things like in 4th year or the MPT you must have gone through. We have to do 3 to 4 minutes exercises. We have to make them more active. The ambulatory period, the heart rate response in ambulatory period, the postural defects, all these things have to be documented. All these things can be prevented after the proper exercise training. And the cost of exercise, cost of exercises have to be calculated, because the diet, nutrition, and the calorie value of the exercises, they have to match each other. Then phase 3, phase 4, these maintenance phases where the patients report to you for the regular follow-up or with some or other orthopedic or vascular or pulmonary issues. And these are the various metabolic equivalents for the exercise prescription base. So like it can help you in prescribing the exercises in various phases. And in various activities, the meds can be utilized for exercise prescription. This was a study which encompasses the rehabilitative part, how the patients have significantly improved after the cardiac surgery. In cardiac rehabilitation, secondary prevention programs are considered among the main indications of ischemic heart disease, including the various methods of myocardial revascularizations, either through coronary artery surgery or through angioplasty. Cardiac rehabilitation and intervention is the best scientific evidence to contribute to the reduction of morbidity and mortality in ischemic heart diseases, particularly after myocardial infarction, but also in coronary artery interventions. Therefore, it is recommended for the highest level of scientific evidence, and this is class 1 evidence as per the AHA guidelines also, by the most important international cardiological organizations. For surgical patients, rehabilitation begins immediately after the surgery and even before the surgery, which is called pre-rehabilitation, with the aim of facilitating the increase of their functional and psychological state. The patients after coronary angioplasty are considered candidate for the physical exercise program depending upon their MAT exercises, exercise capacity, which has been evaluated during their cardiac intervention or cardiac investigations like TMD and Holters or the MUGA test. Patients after coronary, it is confirmed that the comprehensive cardiac rehabilitation reduces cardiovascular mortality, as I had showed in one study that comprehensively, if we give a comprehensive program in cardiac rehabilitation patients, the comprehensive program reduces the mortality by 21%, while the exercise-based program reduces the mortality by 32%. And this is also a study effect of exercise-based cardiac rehabilitation in patients after PCI, a meta-analysis of the RCT, and which also showed that exercise was not clearly associated with reduction in cardiac death or recurrence of MI, repeated PCI, CABG or restenosis. However, the exercise group exhibited greater improvement in recurrent angina, total exercise time, ST segment decline, angina and the maximum exercise tolerance that did the control group. So there was a significant improvement with the exercise program in all these studies. These are the advancement study, the review of the advancement articles. Physiotherapy is a critical component in the management of chronic respiratory diseases. This includes chronic obstructive COPDs, bronchiectasis, cystic fibrosis, interstitial lung diseases, asthma, pulmonary arterial hypertension, and lung cancers also. With improved understanding of pathophysiology of these diseases, systemic manifestations beyond the respiratory system, then the impact of multi-morbidities and the associated clinical burden, including poor exercise tolerance, and limb muscle dysfunction, and low physical activity levels, physiotherapy has shifted away from the traditional focus on airway clearance techniques and breathing exercises towards a strong emphasis on exercise and mobilization. So pulmonary rehabilitation is also advanced in terms of type of exercise training utilized. Traditional programs include continuous moderate intensity loading endurance training, usually ground or on treadmill walking or on stationary cycling, the ergometer, and resistance exercises. Newer research studies have tested a variety of other exercises such as interval training, downhill treadmill walking, upper limb training, balance training, whole body vibrations, respiratory muscle training, Tai Chi, and neuromuscular electrical and magnetic stimulation, many of which are noted in the neurological guidelines. Though AHA guidelines are only comprising of cardiac rehabilitation on exercise and comprehensive exercise-based programs. But these newer therapies are also coming up in the field, and if the patients, like, as I said, the researches have to be conducted in this field because the material, the documentation is very low in such kind of interventions. So pulmonary rehabilitation following acute exacerbation of COPD is associated with reduced hospital readmission and improvement in exercise capacity and HR quality of life. It is recommended to commence with 2 weeks of hospital discharge. Though these are the guidelines from the pulmonary rehabilitation, but at most of the hospitals in pulmonary rehabilitations who are actively involved, the pulmonary rehabilitation starts from the day the patient is admitted over there. After this medical stabilization, the patient's activity-based and exercise-based programs are started. So it does not limit to 2 weeks, like it can be 2 weeks, but it can be away also. Similarly, during hospitalization for an acute exacerbation of COPD, acute rehabilitation such as moderate or high intensity exercises is not recommended. This is due to evidence suggesting acute rehabilitation may be associated with worse mortality in those patients who have restricted or acute exacerbation of COPD with incidence of LRTI or with incidence of heart failure because of the increased burden of right system of the heart.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta, for a nice presentation. We are lacking to short of time.
Oh, that was the last slide.
Please welcome Dr. Suresh Kumar.
Before that, I must thank you, Dr. Gupta, for giving such an illustrative talk. And very truly, he told us where to stop, what not to do and where not to